Hello, Jack here with Buzzword. More academic stuff. Week 3 of the fall 2022 practice packs that they put out. These are packs that are questions that were read in real life. And these ones were last written in 2019. So all the current events are going to be from 3 years ago, before the pandemic, even. Um, yeah, this is with Buzzword. It's a replication of the toss-ups used in Quiz Bowl. So that means the questions will have clues that go from more obscure to more well-known. And the sooner you buzz in and get the correct answer, the more points you get. This will be all academic stuff with a little taste of pop culture. So let's get into it.
Pencil and paper ready.
Oh no.
Vishal needs to know the population density in people per square mile of a city that has 120,000 residents and whose borders form a 4-mile by 4-mile square. By first using the formula for the area of a square to compute the number of square miles in the city, then dividing that value into 120,000, he is able to compute, for 10 points, what population density in people per square mile.
Okay. I'm not going to I'm I'm not going to put my full weight into those.
According to a local myth, all knowledge originated from a lake on this river near the Crystal Mountains. This river, which is fed by the Chambeshi and Lualaba rivers, provides the primary setting of Joseph Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness. This river's
it's the Congo then. Use some literary knowledge to get the geography question. I always enjoy questions like that where the answer ostensibly is a geography thing, but you actually use other knowledge like that. You're using myth and literature knowledge.
This painting includes the numbers 29 and 25 written on a dagger and a book to indicate the ages of its two main subjects. An open hymn book and a lute with a broken string lie on a low shelf in the center of this painting. Jean de Danteville and Georges de Selve stand on either side of this painting.
Let's see. You run through your knowledge of paintings that have two people in them, and you think about the Arnolfini wedding, but there's no daggers or lutes involved in that. So going to be the ambassadors. It's been a while since I've had to think about the ambassadors, so I forget what the pretense of it was. Like, were they getting together to negotiate peace terms in a war? I have a vague recollection that's what it was, but I don't remember.
The ceiling or pilot type of these objects is used to determine cloud height. These objects were used by Léon Tesseract de Bort to discover the stratosphere. Radiosondes that are not dropsondes are typically carried by these objects. Sounding rockets are used at altitudes too high for these objects. For 10 points, name these buoyant aircraft used to transmit weather data, which...
Yeah, I had a feeling it was balloons, but there were just so many nouns coming at me there. I kind of got lost in them.
Population theorist Thomas Malthus was inspired by this American, who predicted exponential population growth in observations concerning the increase of mankind. The first American political cartoon appeared in his newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette. He joked that fish and visitors stink after 3 days in a periodical published under the alias Richard Saunders. For 10 points, who wrote Poor Richard's Almanac?
Okay. That was that one. You had to have some deep Ben Franklin knowledge in order to get it before the giveaway there, which I did not have. I was thinking about other Pennsylvania people. Could have been like Garrison, but I think that was too early for Garrison.
This king's burial at Worcester Cathedral was overseen by William Marshall, who acted as regent for this man's young son Henry. The future Louis VIII was nicknamed the Lion for invading this king's holdings during the First Barons' War. Earlier, this king established legal reforms in a 1215 agreement signed at Runnymede. No other English king shared the name of, for 10 points, what monarch who signed the Magna Carta?
Yeah, who signed the Magna Carta? Who signed the Magna Carta? Oh, it was King John. I thought it was, but then I was like, isn't there another King John? And then you remember, there's only one King John of England. Probably only ever will be one. John's kind of fallen off as a name, I think. I can't think of too many kids being named John. Not that I know a lot of kids.
Most of the original members of this group were captured by the living island Krakoa in a story by Len Wein. The assassination of Senator Robert Kelly brings about a dystopian world in which members of this group are targeted by the Sentinels.
I'm just going to say X-Men. Yeah, there's pop culture. Members of this group, I immediately thought it was pop culture. Then I felt like maybe it isn't. And then, Sentinels and whatnot. I don't know enough about the comics to know if just mutants would have been acceptable there. But X-Men was the safer answer.
The narrator of this novel wonders, why do they never tell us that your mothers are just as anxious as ours, and pleads, forgive me, comrade, while speaking to the corpse of a French soldier. A militiaman called Cat is killed by shrapnel in this novel. Its epilogue reveals that Paul Boehmer...
Yeah. Sounded like All Quiet on the Western Front for a long time there, and then they said Paul Boehmer, and that's essentially a giveaway. All Quiet on the Western Front is the war dispatch from the day that the main character dies. Spoilers for All Quiet on the Western Front.
As Secretary of State, this man approved U.S. invasions of Haiti and the Dominican Republic in the 1910s. He died less than a week after testifying at the trial of John Scopes.
No. It's William Jennings Bryan. Yeah. William Jennings Bryan, he was the defense attorney, and he put himself on the stand. Or no, he was the prosecuting attorney? He was the prosecuting attorney, and he put himself on the stand. He was either the prosecutor or the defense, and he put himself on the stand in order to prove his point. I forgot that he was Secretary of State. But I had some inkling that it was going to be a person in the presidential realm, and Bryan ran plenty of times for president.
This city hosts the annual Web Summit, which is the largest technology conference in the world. The enormous Rua Augusta Arch commemorates a 1755 earthquake that nearly destroyed this city. Its metro area encompasses the mouth of the Tagus River, which is crossed by the Vasco da Gama Bridge, as well as the westernmost point of mainland Europe.
Yeah, it is Lisbon. I should have went in on earthquake. There's only... once you figure out that you're in Europe, there's really only one place that has a famous earthquake in Europe, and that's Lisbon.
This composer's first symphony, which is nicknamed Low, is based on a David Bowie album. This man composed film scores for The Truman Show and The Hours. He wrote a section titled I Feel the Earth Move for an opera in which choruses sing numbers and solfege syllables during interludes called knee plays. For 10 points, named this American minimalist composer who's...
So does Glass. I think it was Glass the whole time, and I was just hesitant. Like, this sounds like Glass. It's gonna be Glass. Because he did Nixon in China, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did Nixon in China. Also known for 433, which is a piece of music where the performer walks on stage, goes up to their instrument, and just sits there for 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
This character uses his strange power of speech to teach others to love all things, both great and small. A woman whose skin is white as leprosy wins control of this man in a dice game with death. The wedding guest converses with this man.
Technically, the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is told in flashback, because it starts out with 3 wedding guests trying to get to a wedding, and the Ancient Mariner stops one of them and tells his tale of albatrosses and the bad things that happen when you kill them.
A hotel in what is now this country was bombed to target the British military in an attack carried out by the group Irgun. Until the 1960s, this country's de facto borders were formed by the Green Line. The founding of this country was advocated in statements such as the Balfour Declaration. David Ben-Gurion...
I mean, I'm pretty sure this is just going to be Israel. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, especially with David Ben-Gurion, it's going to be Israel. It's the first president?
Thevenot's theorem simplifies a circuit to a resistor and a source of this quantity. In one device, this quantity is proportional to the time derivative of magnetic flux times the number of turns in a coil, according to Faraday's law of induction.
Okay.
Kirchhoff's loop rule states that the sum of this quantity going around a closed circuit is 0. For 10 points, name this electromotive force provided by batteries.
Voltage. I was actually thinking it was voltage until they said batteries, and then I should have just stuck with voltage. Obviously, I never really understood electrical stuff. I had a couple of classes, but then I went a couple of classes in high school where I was taught that, but then I moved on to chemistry and forgot all about electricity.
This kind of policy is the first T in the International GATT agreement and the first word in a TRQ strategy, in which a two-tiered type is paired with a quota. This kind of policy leads to deadweight loss in government revenue by creating a domestic price that is higher than the world price. In 2018, Donald Trump targeted foreign steel and aluminum with...
Okay. I was completely lost there. I was like thinking of T. I just spent that whole time thinking of T words because the clues that I was getting in the middle didn't mean anything to me. So just sitting thinking about T words, and then Donald Trump increased tariffs in order to try to help out the American economy.
A woman with this surname used the alias Tanya after taking part in a bank robbery with the Symbionese Liberation.
Yeah, they're just talking about Patty Hearst there. Yeah, that just Symbionese Liberation Army, Patty Hearst, the heiress, was kidnapped and either legitimately turned or got Stockholm syndromed into helping him rob a bank. I think she's still alive. Or did she die recently? I forget. But yeah, that was a very buzzable first clue there for Patty Hearst. Although I suppose if this was meant for college kids in 2019, they may not have had. I mean, I wasn't alive during the Patty Hearst stuff, but I heard about it from older family members.
In glycosylation of proteins, sugars can be attached to the side chain of arginine residues at atoms of this element. 4 atoms of this element coordinate metal atoms in porphyrin rings. The central carbon atom in urea is attached to 2...
urea is carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen. So hydrogen does not do any sort of metal bonding like that. So it really only left me with one option there.
This man looks in vain for such former comrades as the sage Nicholas Vedder. This man encounters a group of people silently playing 9 pins while walking with...
Oh, it's Rip Van Winkle. Oh no! They'll give me that. Rip Can Winkle. Can Rip Winkle? Rip Can Winkle. Yeah, it's from Washington Irving. I think that short story was in the sketchbook of Jeffrey Crayon. But yeah. Oh, it makes sense. He's looking for an old comrade because he was asleep for 20 years. Kind of the only story that put British loyalists in, or a British loyalist like in a good light as a part of American literature. Because Rip Van Winkle fell asleep before the American Revolution and woke up after. So he was still loyal to the king when he woke up and was very confused.
In 2012, this team's head coach was suspended for a year after news broke that defensive coordinator Greg
That's the Saints. Bounty Gate Revenge. Still cursed. Cursed for Bounty Gate. I say. The Saints have not had... I mean, they've been good, because they had Drew Brees. But they never got back to the Super Bowl since then. Since Bounty Gate.
This collection of organisms has 80S ribosomes, which are comprised of 40S and 60S subunits. Lynn Margulis proposed that several structures in these organisms originated from the endosymbiosis of cyanobacteria. These organisms undergo mitosis, unlike counterparts that reproduce through binary fission. Membrane-bound organelles and a nucleus are found in, for 10 points, what domain contrasted with prokaryote?
Okay. I was trying to think of a more specific thing, a more specific group. But eukaryotes are that's a wide group of organisms.
Pedro Carujo tried to kill this man as part of the failed September conspiracy. This man threatened the lives of peninsulares in his decree of war to the death. He argued that weak federal systems were inappropriate for infant states in the Cartagena Manifesto. This victor at the Battle of Boyacá later fought alongside Antonio José de Sucre for 10 points.
I mean, I knew we were in Western America, or not Western America, the Western Hemisphere. So it's going to be, I was thinking it may have been like either Guevara or Castro. But if they're fighting with Sucre, namesake of one of the South American capitals, it's going to be the deliberator himself, Simón Bolívar.
These things are the title subject of Plato's final longest dialogue, which does not depict Socrates. The Baron de Montesquieu wrote about separation of powers in a treatise on the spirit of these things. They are invalid if they are unjust according to the natural...
Yes, I think it's going to be contracts, because they're going to end up with a Rousseau? Okay, that's fine too. That was probably a ambitious buzz, I will say that.
The Texas Senate Bill 1978 is nicknamed for this company, having been introduced after this company's rejected application to open a franchise at San Antonio Airport. The Windshape Foundation was started by this company's founder, S. Truett Cathy, and has donated extensively to groups such as Folk...
Okay, so I think this is going to be... Yeah. The company has donated to very much pro charities and organizations that promote Christian beliefs. We'll leave it at that.
This English word denotes a genre of medieval plays that portrayed biblical miracles and evolved into morality plays. This word also refers to the initiation rites into the cult of Demeter that were held in Eleusis. An American Society of Writers named for this word gives out the Edgar Awards, one of which honors true crime books. For 10 points, give this word for a genre that includes whodunits and detective fiction.
Oh yeah, mysteries. Mysteries and miracles. Yeah. All right. That was a good question. I like that one.
The matrix for this type of geometric transformation has a determinant of -1. Combining this transformation with a translation gives a transformation that adds the word glide to this action's name. Multiplying the x-coordinates of all the points in a shape by -1 accomplishes this transformation.
I think this is just going to be... I'm just going to go for it. I think it's not going to... Okay. I was never going to... I'm not sure I would even get the... I think inversion is probably a form of reflection, but also I don't really know what we're talking about. That's a level of mathematics that I have not had to interact with for a long time.
After being criticized for performing this action, Jesus declares that a house divided against itself cannot stand. An instance of this action in the tombs of Gerasa ends with a herd of swine jumping off a cliff due to the presence of legion. What? Jesus performs this action in the synagogue at Capernaum by shouting, "Come out of him."
I think it's got to be this. Huh, I didn't know Jesus performed exorcisms. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to get... Listen, if you had to choose an exorcist Jesus would probably be like pretty top of the list if he was available.
This American negotiated with James Douglas to end the Pig War. Members of the St.
I don't even
Patrick's
know
Battalion were
what's-
executed by order of this man. He won the Battle of Chapultepec after landing at Veracruz. Though he was born in Virginia, he retained command of the U.S. Army at the outbreak of the Civil War and devised the Anaconda Plan. For 10 points, what general was nicknamed...
It's Scott. Yeah, Winfield Scott. Was kind of only known for the Anaconda Plan. And old Fuss and Feathers, I think is what they're about to say. Yeah, I think he's old Fuss and Feathers. That's some good military nicknames.
These landforms are often covered by nearly horizontal deposits known as topset beds. The features that create these landforms frequently branch out into multiple distributaries near these structures, whose growth produces new land just above sea level. For 10 points, what sediment deposits at the mouths of rivers are often triangular in shape?
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can consider deltas as landforms. I kind of figured they're more just like kind of situations. Because as a river splits off as it gets towards its end point. Yeah, I guess it does deposit. Okay, I was a little thrown by the landform thing.
On the seal of New York City, images of these animals appear above and below a windmill.
Seal.
A ship named for this animal was owned by John Jacob Astor, who became wealthy in the fur trade. These animals, in genus Castor, have a broad...
Yeah, this is beaver. It's got to be beaver. Yeah, Astor would totally would name a ship the Beaver because he made all of his money off of beaver pelts. And Castor is known to me because of Castorium, which is a vanilla flavoring made from the anal glands of beavers. If you think something, if you're eating something and you think it tastes like vanilla ice cream, you're probably eating Castorium.
When this character was a baby, his mother's favorite wish was for him to one day marry his cousin Anne. While visiting Ramsgate, he halts the elopement of his teenage sister, Georgiana. This man refuses to dance during a ball at Netherfield, despite the urging of his friend, Mr. Bingley. Pemberley is the estate of, for 10 points, what man who marries Elizabeth Bennet in Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice.
Who marries... Oh, I'm blanking. It's obviously not this. Elizabeth Bennet. I'm not going to get there. Yeah, Mr. Darcy. Yep. That's something that's in there. I just couldn't get it out in time. Mr. Darcy. I was on Heathcliff for a little bit, but those the sins of Mr. Darcy are not as serious as the sins of Heathcliff and Wuthering Heights.
This band's 1974 album, Get Your Wings, includes a cover of the song Train Kept a Rollin'. The 1998 film Armageddon featured this band's ballad, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Yeah. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. The hit song for the movie Armageddon, which... starred Liv Tyler, Steven Tyler's daughter.
Pencil and paper ready. Ned has 200 blue marbles and needs to know how many red marbles must be added if he wants 20% of the total collection to be red marbles. He denotes the number of red marbles as the variable r, and then sets up an equation showing the relationship between r and r plus 200.
So
for 10 points, how many red marbles must be added to get a collection that is 20% red marbles?
Sure. I just kind of did some random math and randomed into that.
At the end of this story, a beautiful mother taking a stroll with her child is shocked to be greeted by a common woman. The central characters of this story visit a merchant whose name appears inside a black satin box. After waltzing at a ministerial ball, Mathilde Loisel notices that the story's title object is missing. Guy de Maupassant wrote, for 10 points, what story about efforts to replace a piece of jewelry?
That's just the necklace, I think it's called. Okay. Yeah, that's just a vague remembering of, there's a story called The Necklace, I think.
A 1907 Protestant revival bolstered this Asian city's reputation as the Jerusalem of the East. This city's Rungwado May Day Stadium, which is the largest arena by capacity in the world, has sometimes been used for executions. Its skyline is dominated by the unfinished, pyramid-shaped Ryugyong Hotel, which began construction in 1987.
Oh, did they want the
mausoleum
city?
of Kim Il-sung is in, for 10 points, what
City or
capital
country?
of North Korea?
Okay. I knew that from the hotel, but I forgot if they were asking for the city or the country. So I left some points on the board there.
Under this emperor, a Jewish revolt called the Quietus War was crushed by the general Lucius Quietus.
Okay.
Apollodorus of Damascus designed a massive bridge to help this man fight Decebalus. His conquest of Mesopotamia was vacated by his successor, Hadrian. This man's victory in the Dacian War was celebrated in a namesake column.
Okay. You can put yourself into, okay, it's going to be one of the Roman emperors, and then you just kind of wait until there's a clue. And Trajan's column was the buzzable clue there.
A section of this musical work was described as a Black Pearl by Wanda Landowska, the first person to record this work on the instrument for which it was intended. A song about cabbages and turnips appears in a quadruplet in this piece. Glenn Gould recorded this piece for his debut album.
Oh, is
this piece was supposedly written for the insomniac Count Kaiserling. For 10 points, name these harpsichord variations by J.S. Bach.
Yeah, there was the Gould variations. I thought with Glenn Gould. Yeah, I thought it was with Glenn Gould. So I don't know what clue I was hoping for after that. Should have just went for it.
Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard developed one of these devices based on water, ammonia, and butane. The most efficient cycle for one of these devices is the reverse of the Carnot cycle. Like heat pumps, they can be described as reversed heat engines.
I was about to put air conditioners. That's the inverse of a heat pump. But refrigeration is the more technical term for that.
An investigation of this event was launched by John Kendrick and led by Robert La Follette Sr. A scheme developed at the Little Greenhouse on K Street by members of the Ohio Gang led to this event, in which the businessmen Edward Doheny and Harry Sinclair bribed Secretary of the Interior Albert Fall.
Teapot Dome. That's where we get Fall Guy, is because Albert Fall took the brunt of the punishment for the Teapot Dome scandal.
In 2019, an athlete from this country named Israel Folau made homophobic statements that caused him to be cut from this country's national rugby team. Quiet inhabitants of this country were credited for a surprise 2019 victory of the Liberal National Coalition, which defeated the Labour Party. Scott Morrison is Prime Minister of, for 10 points, what Commonwealth country whose government sits in Canberra?
Okay. You have to remember I knew it was either New Zealand or Australia, but I thought with that last clue, even in 2019, I think the Prime Minister of New Zealand was female, so it was going to be Australia.
This novel's protagonist is entrusted to deliver a yellow envelope in the event that Wilson is killed. A tattered man witnesses the death of Jim Conklin in this novel. The protagonist of this novel eventually becomes a flag bearer for the 304th New York Regiment. After fleeing a battle, Henry Fleming seeks to redeem himself by
the Red Badge of Courage, which is a wound of some sort.
This AL team's then primary shortstop, who now plays for the Twins, won the 2017 and 2018 AL Gold Glove Awards after being traded to this team from the Braves. In July 2019, this team's pitcher, Tyler Skaggs, died from...
Yeah, those were all some very recent things that happened in 2019. So I just had to remember that Andrelton Simmons was the Twins shortstop for a while in 2019. And since then, we've had more well-known shortstops. But yeah, Tyler Skaggs. I believe recently the or Tyler Skaggs died of a fentanyl overdose, or some sort of opioid overdose. I don't remember exactly if it was fentanyl. But yeah, just recently, the trainer that gave him the drugs was convicted for his death, I believe.
This woman tells her sister Anna that her tender soul was not forewarned to bear the sight of sailors loading ships. After a visit from the ghost of her husband, Zacchaeus, this woman flees Tyre and founds a city on land she encircled with strips of oxide. After being abandoned by a Trojan prince, this woman curses...
I know. It's the only famous queen in Roman history. Yeah, she's from Carthage. Supposedly the mythological origin of the conflict between Rome and Carthage was Aeneas ghosting Dido.
This man won his highest elected office by defeating Wilhelm Marx. Earlier, this general won the Battle of the Masurian Lakes. He crushed an army led by Alexander Samsonov with the help of his chief of staff, Erich Ludendorff. While serving as president of his country, this man reluctantly made Adolf Hitler chancellor in 1933. For 10 points, what German statesman was the namesake of an ill-fated Zeppelin?
Okay. Even the reader there was like, this is a giveaway. An ill-fated Zeppelin.
This property of atoms is the main attribute used to determine priorities for assigning R and S stereochemistry. In 1913, Henry Moseley showed that this property determines an element's location on the periodic table. Every element has a unique value of this quantity, which is written to the left of and below atomic symbols.
Okay, yeah. They were talking for a while. It's like they're just talking about how many protons they have in the... Like, that's what determines what element it is how many protons are present in the nucleus. What if only there was a easy way to boil that down into 2 words instead of the essay that I was thinking about writing? Oh, it turns out there is. It's just atomic number.
This author asked not to be loved because of a smile or a way of speaking gently in a poem that begins, "If thou must love me, let it be for naught, except for love's sake only." This author described men who strive for right and turn from praise in a poem that enumerates answers to the question, "How do I love thee?" For 10 points, what Victorian poet...
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways is Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
In 2017, a member of this family sued the New York Times for linking one of her ads to the shooting of Gabrielle Giffords. Another member of this family starred in a reality show subtitled Life's a Trip, referring to her son. The matriarch of this family described female candidates she endorsed as Mama Grizzlies. For 10 points...
Palin. Ugh.
Thousands of children affected by this event were treated at the beach town of Tarará in Cuba. After this event, structures nicknamed Nina and Masha were cleared by workers called liquidators and were later covered in a sarcophagus made of concrete.
Okay. I was in the wrong place. Chernobyl makes a lot more sense.
During this process, the enzyme PK is responsible for the Warburg effect, in which cancer cells tend to favor this process. The committed step of this process is catalyzed by phosphofructokinase. This process is divided into an investment phase, which requires 2 ATP, and a payoff phase that generates 4 ATP. Pyruvate is produced in, for 10 points, what first step of cellular respiration in which glucose is split?
I don't know what this is. Glycolysis. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. All right. What did I end up with? 510. That's up there. That's okay. I feel like I got most of them right. I got one of the math ones right, which I'll take. All right. That was level C. Week 3 for fall 2022 Buzzword. If you want to take a shot at questions like these, you can check out Buzzword's offerings at naqt.com/Buzzword. That's it for me in this video. We'll see you later.